Hello and welcome to our new remote meetup today. We have the pleasure to host a conversation with two heavyweights of the domain-driven design community. Of course, I'm talking about Alberto Brandolini, inventor of EventStorming and author of Introducing EventStorming. Hey, Alberto.
Hello.
And we also have Paul Rayner, organizer of the Explore DDD conference, author of the EventStorming handbook, available on LinkPub, and domain remodeler. Hello, Paul.
Hey, great to be here.
Excellent. Thanks, guys. So
Also
today...
one of the less heavyweight guys in.
Oh, that's what you are. Yeah, we can't go back.
Yeah, I'm
now.
not sure about that heavyweight crack.
So today, with the two heavyweights, we'll be discussing the challenges DDD professionals all over the world have been facing since the whole COVID situation started. If you want to follow along, Alberto and Paul will be writing on Scribble during the talk, which is a new thing we are trying. I'm gonna share the link on the YouTube chat we have available. So if you want to follow along, that's the link. Lastly, I'll just remind you that through the YouTube chat, you can ask questions both to Alberto and Paul, and every now and then we'll be stopping to read your questions. That's it from me. I'm Enrico from Avanscoperta, and enjoy the talk. Over to you, guys.
Hey, thank you.
Hello, thank you, Enrico. So we have the first, well, welcome to be here, but yeah, we met already in the other room. And the first thing for us, the first challenge in this year, I mean, one of the hot questions is what happens to modeling, collaborative modeling specifically. And when now all of our best weapons are not viable anymore because of travel bans and too many people in the same room, everything we liked is actually forbidden now. And I guess that's the main pain point for everybody. And I would like to. We've been making some experiments, but I would like to start the conversation with this topic.
So I already noticed, so you're speaking of the challenges room, I already noticed people are scribbling all over our scribble pad which is awesome. So we're gonna have to either clean those out or maybe set a ground rule that maybe it's just you and I drawing on the board so that we can keep this under control somewhat.
Okay, yeah, that's well, that's one of the challenges. I mean,
this is one of the challenges.
The action, like everybody is on my flip chart. Yeah, that is actually a good point. Like there is an implicit behavioral code or only one person has a marker in a whiteboard or a flip chart. You can control the tools in very different way. If you are in a room with people, you might be taking physical possession of the flip chart, handing markers to people to signal like, okay, that's a moment to draw. And yes, this is a perfect example of what happens when you have a different set of controls over the tools in here. So it might be already something in this case. Yes, a few other people joining.
So I think just to preface this is our understanding is we're coming on to talk about the challenges as two friends that are going through this, that have consultancies, that have been training and coaching in modeling and design and event storming as well. And so we thought it would be good to get together and just talk through that, not necessarily because we've got all the answers, we certainly don't, but as a way of maybe sharing some of what we've learned and some things that work and don't work, and then also hear from other people as well and have the conversation with them. So in terms of the challenges for remote modeling, let me ask you the question, Alberto. So what have you noticed so far with that?
So on a personal basis, we play with the tools. One of the things is most of the questions is around which tools are you using. Everybody's worried about the tool stack, and I would say this is who we are. We are nerds. We are coding, and the first thoughts goes to the tooling and not the people. But the thing that is making me really sometimes exhausted during this session is the absence of feedback from faces, body language, eyes, little smile, or also the little delay in feedback. Yeah, I was tweeting just 10 minutes ago. It was a different situation, but this is also repeating in modeling session. I say something that feels like a joke for me, but then I don't see faces, so maybe it's not a joke. Maybe somebody got angry. Everybody's quiet. People don't laugh when their microphone is muted, and if they just put a smiley face, I'm not sure it was working okay. I realized that's a lot of extra work of my brain asking continuously myself the question in my head, what is going on here? Like, did I do the right thing? I'm in continuous self-correcting mode, and this is depleting my energy a lot more.
Right. So I'll just write that down. I've noticed that too. There've been several articles published in the last week on the way that being on video calls can be so tiring due to a lack of visual feedback, the normal body language cues that we would be able to process get more tiring, especially when you have larger calls and dealing with that. And I have to say, I spent the last 2 weeks attending a bunch of webinars and virtual conferences as I try to figure out what we should do for Explore DDD in September in terms of the conference, looking at virtual options and seeing what other people are doing. And by the end of every day, I was exhausted in terms of you know, just being these virtual experiences all the time, like we're having right now, and thinking about what form ideally should training take, and how to do that in a way that is actually respectful of people and their energy levels. And so much of what I try to do as a facilitator is managing energy.
And yeah, feels like that. It just goes down faster, and for different reasons. Also, I have noise canceling headphones. I usually use them when I'm with somebody else. But this sealed feeling in your ears is good for a 20 minutes call, not for a 2 hours call. Then you start feeling like your brain is compensating. But technically, well, I don't have. It feels like your system 2 is continuously active, trying to in your brain, trying to compensate for the lack of feedback. So what used to be just a conversation is a conversation with noise canceling, noise correction, lag adjustment, delay, just like watching a movie with bad subtitles or bad dubbing, and stop being relaxing. And
right. And so you mentioned system 2, so I'll just put a note here that's from Thinking Fast and Slow, right? You want to define what you mean by system 2 for those that?
That's Daniel Kahneman abstraction of having the brain kind of made up 2 competing systems. System 1 is the quick, low consumption, pattern matching part of the brain, the one that makes silly jokes and laugh, the one that gets waken up by dangerous situation, while system 2 is the one that is single task, really deep, high consumption, the one that is kind of screaming in pain if you're trying to drive your car while making an abstract calculation in your mind. Sometimes you realize you cannot do 2 things at the same time, and it consumes a lot more energy. And actually, when it's depleted, it turns your brain into, well, the good old stupid guy that we used to be in the before language was invented, and or yeah, in the early days. And yeah, that is a problem in a normal workshop. It is a little bit of a larger problem in online workshop because you don't see it going down. You just have to estimate when it's going to be going down.
I know I've spent like a lot of time, like I said, on virtual events, and then also trying to read as much as I can about how to facilitate remotely, how to get better at that. And, you know, there's a lot of good material out there that I'd never really come across before. And so it feels a little bit like we've been thrown into this chaotic situation. We all have, and we're struggling to figure out how to make the most of, how to embrace the remote aspect of this and how to make the most of it, and to not just take what we know from in person and just move that across into a virtual setting.
Yep. Yeah, the tools are different. I mean, one of the suggestions I appreciate best is okay, one way of thinking is trying to recreate the experience in a digital format. The other approach is forget about that experience, treat it as something entirely new, and try to model around the possibilities that the modeling tools is offering. Like there were a couple of that were interesting, like using the colors in a different way. Changing the colors of a sticky note is not really a viable operation in the physical world. I mean, it takes a rewriting, and everybody feels annoyed by rewriting on a different color, changing it. I mean, it can happen like a correction, but not on a massive scale. While in some workshop, yeah, we might say like everybody starts with their own color. We see the distribution of personal colors, and then we progressively change the color along the way. This gives an idea of progression, movement, and so on, and it might be helpful. Or also copying, splitting, merging, branching is completely different. So we could also have a progression of what's going on. Like every break, we take a snapshot, we move on, and we see how the model actually changes. I mean, some possibilities are interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I tweeted about this. I just published a video on YouTube of, and I mentioned this on our call yesterday, of a session that DDD Denver did 2 weeks ago, where we did some virtual event storming using Miro and on a Zoom call like this. And some of the things that I noticed about that were the ability to like take the result of the previous session and just copy the entire thing and make a new copy, and then start cleaning up the new copy. And then being able to have a small group on a video call, like the energy was actually pretty good. Although after an hour, I felt like I was in desperate need of a break with that.
Yeah. There's another thing that is worrying me. Like, so during the workshop, a physical one, you might be a lot more in control of what happens in the room. So you actually choose the room. You make sure there's good light, good oxygen, good fresh beverages, and right. Okay, that's a suitable thing for the room. And then you just manage the workshop experience. Well, when everything is happening remotely, you have no idea about the impediments which are happening in the house of or in the office of the people joining. Like some people might feel like detached, they just having young kids at home, and or they might be in a noisy place, or the personal connection, like mine at home, might be bad, and so well, they switch the camera off just to have some extra bandwidth. And or some people might have double screen. Some people they don't. Some people might actually see the big picture because the screen is large enough. Other people, I'm looking everything through a laptop, and so there is no point of the big picture on a 13-inch screen. So I have a mid-sized picture as a maximum, and that's and for things like EventStorming specifically, there's a moment where you look at the board, which is 10, 12 meters, and there is all the blue arrows pointing to the problem. That's a punch in the face. If everything is so small, well, that's yeah, that's a little, yeah, pinch in the nose. It's not a punch in the face. It's I'm feeling like we are losing some grip in delivering the message. The message is still there, but there is no punch.
So does that show up in other places as well, do you think? Like you mentioned the example in the big picture model of being able to highlight the constraint in a, you know, a large business process that crosses over multiple organizational silos. Is that where you're, it sounds like that's a major place where you're seeing that. Are there other ones as well?
Yeah, in general, one of the things that we lack in a lot is the idea of full immersion. I mean, I remember we had a 3-day workshop in London, and we basically used every single wall of the room, and we created a place that looked like something that you might use for a serial killer investigation, like putting all the clues together and try to form a map. But we were basically investigating a very complex business, and then we could make connection between one thing that was on that wall, one thing that was on that wall, and then the experience was immersive. And this is gone. Like this immersive experience was really good for the learning, for triggering some conversation, and also people had no way out. Well, the problem is somewhere there in this room, and you cannot escape it. Since online session could not be longer than half a day, you can escape them. Since your screen can be small, you can be distracted by many other things. And also, you will be, I would say, distracted also because, well, actually, if you're not right on the problem, just looking at a mirror board is boring. Things are not moving that quickly. The human eye needs some movement, maybe just hands waving around, sometimes just to be awake. If I just stay here and speak slowly for a few minutes, then somebody's going to fall asleep. And so you need a little bit of movement, and the screen is not given that. So yeah, I feel like the message is a little bit sterilized in some places. When solving technical problems still goes pretty well. When punching in somebody's face, I feel like I'm missing something.
Right.
I mean, this is not literal. Like I don't want to punch anybody in the face, but yeah, I would like to make the problem big and visible. Actually, I'm writing down a book reference for this.
Switch.
Yes.
Great.
Which is one of the reasons why we need this punch in the face. There are the 3 ingredients for starting a change management initiative, and you need the punch. And,
so this is very much in a big picture workshop, is what you're highlighting here, right?
Yeah. But yeah, then on another normal remote modeling session, yeah, they work pretty well between people who are already in the same team. I know what I can say. I know what I'm not going to say. I can read somebody's emotion by the voice because I have previous familiarity. It feels a lot more awkward if I'm doing it with people I don't know for the first time.
Right.
And still doable, awkward, really, really a lot.
Right. You don't have that joking with each other, getting to know each other before you go into the actual session, unless there's some way of doing that in a virtual setting. Yeah,
there might be some ways, but well, the last setting we were in, I think there were something like 30 people, and most of them didn't even have the camera on. So I was modeling in a room full of initials, and yeah, really felt awkward in some moments. I was taking over a little because most of the people were not used to do EventStorming. So okay, I'm gonna do a little bit of show at the beginning as an example, and then yeah, I have some verbal feedback, but only from 4 or 5 people. So I literally have no idea what the majority of the people in the virtual room were thinking.
Right.
And,
well, so I'm curious, are there any questions that have come through on the chat, Enrico, that we should address, or comments as we're going through this?
No questions as such, but some considerations as we go along, yes. We have one from Giancarlo, for example. Nonverbal communication is really important in the communication, since the communication flow can happen only when an emotional channel is established. So the communication tool matters in establishing it. So again, I guess referring to the fact that as we are all remote, this part is somehow missing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, then we have Claudio Perrone showing off, saying that he has 3 large screens. He's probably doing the virtual Formula 1 racing also with such a setup.
Probably at the same time, like he's watching this as well as driving. Hi, Claudio. So
yep.
I think there's a balance as well, because we want to be respectful of people that don't feel comfortable on video, and at the same time, it's such a critical part of this, of the body language aspects of it. I wonder in a virtual format if there are, like, a working agreement in a workshop could be, okay, we're going to go for an hour, and during that time, if you need to turn off your camera for a little while just to or step away, then give people the ability to do that if they feel uncomfortable with that. Like the EventStorming session that I was involved with 2 weeks ago, halfway through, I think I had to go do something with my family outside. So I just excused myself and left for a little while, and then came back. And what was actually nice about doing that exercise in Miro was that the board was still there, and I could go through and kind of read through what was on the board and then re-enter the conversation pretty quickly, which I imagine is similar to like the mob programming experience that I've heard people talk about, where, you know, you're kind of mob modeling, right? Is maybe more of a way of thinking about it. And that was just an experiment. That was an exercise. We weren't modeling a real business process, but some of the dynamics seem like they could apply in what we're talking about.
Actually, that is interesting. Well, there are 2 things that made me wonder. One, I do a lot of real-time adjustment when I'm in the real world. Oh yes, I forgot. Maybe we need to have some working agreement just because I see somebody's face. And then 2 things are happening when I'm online. I cannot see faces, and we already talked about it. And then I get in the conversation. So if I for online session, I think it pays off to be in 2 people, because if you don't plan to say the working agreement before the start, I mean, a person like me would probably forget to set it up for the rest of the session. So I need to have a wingman in some situation, while I didn't need, in some cases, a wingman, because I just needed to take a look to the room and, oh yeah, I probably forgot something. You cannot do this. So you have to have a stricter plan if you are alone, or a wingman if you are adaptable. The second thing is that was really interesting, is that the mob programming way of organizing time works really well. The format that I've seen working better is okay, let's establish what is the minimum duration, usually 5 or 7 minutes, but it doesn't have to be a round robin. Is okay, who wants to go up next? Is because it just 5 minutes, if you have enough familiarity with the notation, is enough to make your change. It's just like it works. You adding 2 or 3 stickies to the model, you're solving a problem, you're delivering something. You might be maybe not listening to what was going on before because you're thinking about your next move, but well, the model is actually progressing faster. And this is a type of interaction that needs 2 or 3 time slots to be established, and then works really well.
Well, and I think that's something that I've noticed is that if you can actually be quite focused on a virtual call, doing virtual modeling together, but it depletes your energy faster, then being able to spread those sessions over a long period of time makes, over multiple sessions, different days, seems like it could be a great approach, right? Like that's the way that I'll be structuring the training that I offer, is taking what is normally a 2-day class and splitting it over 4 different sessions. And I've seen a number of people do that. The typical approach I'm seeing for a lot of trainers is to take their 2-day class and deliver it as 2 virtual days, which I, as an instructor, would just find exhausting. I don't think I would even make it through the first day. So I can't imagine what that would be like for the actual participants in the class. But being able to spread it over multiple sessions so we can manage energy and increase the learning, and then capitalize on the ability to assign practice asynchronously for people to do between the sessions, or if it's modeling, to be able to have a Miro board or a mural board that endures and that we can come back to, seems like actually using this a lot better, and having almost like a mob approach over a period of time to do the modeling.
Yeah, well, actually there are a couple of things here, like yeah, the duration is different. A couple of things that we discovered were, especially when it comes to coding activities, this is a little bit more related to training, but well, switching from a classroom to I'm coding at home actually helped some of the coding activities, because some people actually were performing better when they were at home compared to when they were in a classroom. On the other side, one of the benefits of an in-person workshop, be it a classroom or be it a training or a workshop, is you create a protected context. Everybody's in the room. This is the most important thing to do. You don't disturb the people in the room. And now for online sessions, well, it's a lot different. Also, another thing that we noticed is the moment we set up for maybe just a private class or a remote session for a single customer, if it's not a public session, the number of people asking to move the session around at a different timing is increasing. So there's it's just a 3-hour session, but I don't want to spend 2 hours moving it on Google Calendar. Since there is no travel involved, feels like, oh, that's easy to move. Oh yeah, still is rearranging and replanning continuously, and that's some extra work we were not expecting. But for the attendees, it's a lot about protection. You are here and people are not disturbing. Oh, I'm just in a remote classroom and people are coming and joining in and interrupting, so your thought might be vanishing.
Talking about this, if I may interrupt, we have a question from Matthias, which seems kind of fitting, because he says, how about the context in which people are? For example, I finished a training each day at 12:30, and later I learned that people always have the next meeting at 1 and didn't have enough time for lunch. And he says, of course, if I had known that, I could have finished at 12. So all this shuffling around with timings might also have an impact on the participants, say, organization, and not only on the trainer, of course. So all things to keep in mind. And
yeah,
also,
one thing I would say with that, I guess as well, is how much of that can we move out to as preparatory work for a session. So for an in-person session, for example, the session I ran in Singapore in January, I put a lot of, well, the contact at the client, we worked together to make sure that everyone made it a priority, that the person that was at the company cleared everyone's calendar. At the start of the session, we actually had a senior director come on a video call and explain to everyone in the room why it was important. And that doesn't always happen, but the level of commitment from the people at the organization made a big difference to the level of engagement with everyone in the room. And I wonder how much of that is on us to insist on that kind of level of preparation for these more critical sessions. If it's just a team that is doing a quick session and it's part of their regular work, then that's probably not so necessary. But if it is something that is more impactful, then that seems like preparatory work to set expectations for this would be more useful. Other questions, Enrico?
Yeah, I'll go on with another one from Matthias, who says, how about time? I recently gave a DDD training on 6 half days instead of 3 full days. And that's something we've also experienced with Avanscoperta, moving our workshop to the online format. But Alberto and Paul, of course, are the best people to dig into this.
Yeah, that's more or less the type of approach that we are taking. Only half a day for online activity, mostly, yeah, split in 2 parts. We are not yet sure about the actual timing. We need to run a little bit more experience. I mean, for a short class, roughly this division is okay. For a 3-day class like my DDD modeling workshop, I have no idea if this can be 6 half days or or 5. Anyway, it's really weird as doing it for so many days continuously. Like there's context switch for the participants, and there is context switch for the trainers too. So our brain is not working according to Google Calendar. So the other half day, is it a good half day or is it a bad one? What can I do with this other half day? Usually what I do is I do some gardening on the training material. What was happening on maybe on a scribble pad will turn into a small article or a more structured answer with references and links. So the quality of the training experience might actually improve, or the quality of the delivered material. But in terms of how to use the training, how to deliver an impact, I'm still missing some answers. I would need to see the practitioners at the end of the workshop in 2 years from now and said, like, that was great, that changed my life, I started doing this and this and this, and that was a blast. And well, we don't have data yet for this, but I mean, there is a little bit of a challenge on the trainer side also, because well, the calendar and the days are organized in a different way. There is a lot less traveling, right, which is good and bad. Now I really feel like I hated queues in the airports. I would probably pay for one, and after 2 months of being stuck at home. But yeah, it was a different time. It was a time where you could have different thoughts, different insights. You were seeing different places, and now it's everything is a lot more repeatable, and we need some other way to think differently.
Right. I'm reminded of the Satir change model, Virginia Satir from Family Systems Theory, the idea that manage through change, you start out with like performance over time. Let me sketch it here so I can, performance over time. And you start out with a certain status quo, which is where we've been as a community. And then there's some kind of foreign element, which in our case, we all know what that is, that leads to chaos. And then at some point in the midst of all this chaos, there's some kind of transforming idea, or multiple transforming ideas. But if we just talk about one of them, this transforming idea that over time, through practice and integration, leads to a new status quo. over here. So this is the like the old status quo that we start with. And you know, the status quo that we've been talking about was in-person training, focused workshops, protected spaces, not a lot of need for virtual tools. And now we're in the chaos of people working from home, adjusting to that, being with their families, companies filling their schedules full of meetings. I mean, that's the reality, that a lot of people working longer hours perhaps because of all of that. And what we're trying to do is to look at this and say, well, let's run experiments, right? In the Cynefin framework, like we're in the complex space. And so we have to run experiments, we have to probe to see what we're going to do and be able to do that. And so I've sort of found this useful, this model here. Let me write it down. So this is Virginia Satir. Change model as a way of thinking about some of these. Okay, any other questions while we're going through?
Yes.
I wrote something down too. Like it was a question from
Yes.
Claudio Perrone. Like we played a lot with the idea of popcorn flow in these days. So from a company perspective, I mean, half of our business is basically in-person training, and that was suddenly legal. So we have to redesign our entire business model. While the other half was on-site consulting. So even that one, it need to be changed. And it was a major effort in redesigning business line, redesigning also meetups. This is a result of one of these experiments, and becoming decent and then probably good in doing these meetups too, just because we wanted to get into a state of continuous experimentation. Not so much discipline in saying like, oh, we should do this first or this first. Try something's gonna work, something not. Let's do accelerated Darwinian selection on the tool, and something is gonna work, something is gonna stick. And the attitude was absolutely actually great. I mean, from the financial perspective, was just like a tsunami in our face in the first weeks. And but then, okay, well, that's a new challenge. We like it. I mean, we are consultants. We don't like repeating the thing. We like inventing stuff, and then that worked really well. And there was another, actually, the thing was the question talking about the preparation. The question from Claudio was if you wasted any time teaching how to use Miro. That is weird, a little bit depending on the audience, but usually in my in-person classes, it was a lot more aggressive in okay, let's talk a little bit intro, and then intro is over, let's face the challenge. And that was interesting. It gave people some a few minutes of what the hell is going on. And I said, like, I don't want to do this so brutally in an online class. So I actually picked your Cinderella idea and had a different story. We started with a simpler problem, which gives me the space to teach the tooling if needed, play around, see what the dynamics are. Okay, then 25 minutes over, let's do the real stuff. Or let's have a coffee and let's do the real stuff.
Right, so teaching the tooling through some kind of warm-up exercise, some kind of fun warm-up exercise, so that they're not trying to do more than one thing at the same time, right? It's like, let's do something fun to learn the tool together, and then from there, once we've mastered that, then be able to move across. So it's not this big stressful experience for everyone of trying to do that.
Yeah, I cannot see stress. I can only see inaction and then it could happen for so many reasons. So I need to split the possible reasons in different buckets.
Okay, and I guess this connects back to what also Lorenzo was asking, as in, is there any material that can prepare attendees to a remote session to make it shorter and less painful for the early remote session? In some ways.
There is, I mean, there is a lot of material out there on how to use Miro, how to use Mural, these whiteboarding tools. And I mean, I was in the same boat as everyone else, having to learn how to use these. And I think there's an opportunity for people to create templates, like I've seen Nick Chun doing with the strategic DDD materials. I know Alberto has a template. Do you want to share that, Alberto, as an example? Because one thing that's really nice about these virtual tools is you can set up like a cooking show. You can say, here's something that we've already baked previously that we can sort of show you how this works, and then have some kind of warm-up exercise for people to be able to get started on it. I've thought one of the things I plan to do for my workshops is to produce just a short video that I can send out to people that they can work along with to get them familiar with the tool. Because I think it's important that people come into a session feeling as comfortable with the tools as they possibly can, or at least being given the opportunity to do that. If they choose not to prepare, then that's on them. But I think it's important for the people that want to prepare to have an opportunity to do that.
Yep. Yeah, actually, let's see if I can share the screen for a second. Fast disable attendee screen sharing. Okay, maybe later, no problem.
Well, let me try.
Yeah, you can do it now.
Okay. So look, okay. It's just offering me something like 16 different pages to share, and that's not the one I wanted. Yeah, right. This one.
You got it.
And so yeah, that's a starting point for that we have. So we have something that you can pick and something that explains the annotation for the workshop. And well, usually there's a little bit of an outline here. Well, not in this case. But the thing is, with a warm-up exercise, you can provide guidance that is fine. But at the same time, like every time, some people don't think they need the guidance till they get there. And also there is right. Two types. I mean, people like us, I would say, Nerds Explorer. Oh, a new tool, let me try it. And whenever I'm registering for a new online tool, well, somebody said like, do you need any help? Do you need a presentation? No, I'm having fun just playing it by myself. And right. But other people might actually need this. So let me show you how to do this. I just click on everything. Maybe I'm still in my kid stage as a brain shape. I just click on everything to see what happens. And then, well, yeah, 20 minutes later, I'm not exactly an expert, but I can do almost whatever I want. Mm-hmm. And but yeah, some people are different from this. So you need to help them without showing that you're helping them.
I like this template. I think that's a good. So how do you? So I'll ask some questions about this because I'm curious. So one of the things when I'm doing event storming is I'm trying not to overwhelm people with a lot of new things at the same time. So I usually do more of a progressive, iterative approach to introducing different sticky colors and things like that. It seems like you could still do this. You could still take that kind of approach. You would just build up the legend as you go rather than providing one that has everything right at the beginning. Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, but you cannot do this if you are facilitating solo.
Mm-hmm.
So it's my way to say, like, look, there's everything here. We will start focusing only on one color, and that's my facilitator. But you're not gonna be lost. There's an explanation for everything. Some people are gonna be curious, reading all the instructions. Other people are gonna be okay in following the facilitator. I don't know exactly what is best. I felt like this is creating a little bit more safety net for everybody. So I'm sure that even if I forget to say something, it's going to be written somewhere. And but progressively writing just takes a lot of energy. I know that's the way I'm doing it in a classroom, but in a virtual classroom, I prefer to have everything already there. And also writing takes a lot more time because I would like to make things tidy with the right font and the right size, and then you're spending a lot of time aligning things, and that's worthless, and it's not that important. Actually, that's a question for you. How much time do you spend aligning the stickies to make sure that this is exactly aligned with the other one?
Me personally?
Yeah.
Very, very little.
Okay.
I think you and I have different facilitation styles as well, because I'm very much, I'll come in and ask a question and sort of try and prompt, like I'll see if people are stuck and I'll ask them maybe a couple of questions and point out some things, and then I'll step back and let them figure out what they want to do from there. So my style is very much more hands-off in that respect, and I think that has as much to do with my extreme introvert kind of approach here, or not wanting to be sort of in the middle of things quite so much. I think that's maybe just more my personality than whether or not that's a good thing or not.
I think you were gonna say I think you have a OCD, which might be true, and but it's funny because this type of workshop it's really messy, and it's a progressive journey into structure. But the signals of messiness is one of the things I'm missing from this one. I mean, the digital messy is completely different from the paper messy. It's in digital, things look tidy even if they are total bullshit. While in paper, in order to get to it, you have to conquer a good, elegant model, because you have to restructure things, put things there, write them down better. It takes a couple of rewrites to get to the right model. And I would say giving a false sense of security sometimes, because aligning things is so easy, but then it's colorful bullshit sometimes.
Yeah, I think that would be up to us as the facilitator to call out that kind of situation.
Excellent.
It just digital tools. They're assuming you would like to put everything 90 degrees perfect. Then this is not perfect, but this is signaling a lot more, and feels like bad. At the end, it's just exactly the signal I would like to.
Right. Well, can I just share here? This might be helpful for some people. So I mentioned to you, Alberto, and I think I showed you this.
Yep.
Are you able to see my screen?
Yep.
So this, when we finished Explore DDD last year, as an organizing team, we actually decided to run an experiment using Miro for our retrospective over the conference. So this was with a team that had never done, like I was the only one that had done event storming, and we did this remote, and you can see it's a mess, but it was actually really, really helpful in terms of being able to identify things that worked well in the conference, things that did not work so well, and decide, what would we do to improve things for next year. And I was actually able to take the result of this and then walk it through with the company that we had subcontracted to do the audio visual work. So I walked them through it after the fact. You can see the blue boxes with the little AV. So I just highlighted all those sections and then walked through with them as a separate retrospective And it was a really nice non-confrontational way to do this type of thing. So I think that it can be helpful to, like, I think there are opportunities that virtual tools give us that that maybe we have neglected because we haven't pushed hard enough into seeing them as perhaps a transforming idea, and trying to make the best of that. If we do, I mean, I guess this isn't really much of a spoiler, but you know, Explore DDD will very likely be some kind of virtual event this year if we can solve the collaboration piece for that. And one of the things that I've enjoyed over the last 3 years is having the real-time retrospective board, which is kind of almost like an event storm real-time of the conference event itself. And I've seen that as a nice, powerful way to provide feedback through this. I wonder if some kind of mechanism in a workshop of setting aside an area of the Miro board for people to put up comments about how they're feeling and how they're going, and provide some kind of anonymous psychological safety for people through that, in combination with a virtual working agreement. These are things that we haven't really, I don't think have been explored enough, at least I haven't, that I think would be good experiments for people to do.
We're actually trying to do something like this in classrooms. Like, so it's not on the board because given the different classroom dynamics, it might be different. Well, the trainer is not alone in a training room. Enrico or Alessandro, or anyway, we have now we have the name producer role, so that we are not alone in the. I mean, the trainer can focus on the teaching part, and the producer can pick the signals from the mood of the classroom, or have another channel, or could be available for maybe just something like, I cannot understand what the teacher or the trainer is saying, maybe accent, maybe audio, or maybe missing links or some stuff, because when trying to deliver content online, the technical stuff can actually be really, really overwhelming. And I remember it's a similar feeling like getting to a training room and discovering that somebody forgot the paper roll, the markers are not working, the whiteboard is not good, and then you have to spend 20 minutes before the training class in panic mode, talking with people, finding stuff, and because people are coming. And then when it's online, I realized the feeling of being late is even more annoying, even if I'm Italian. It's just like people are there, it's 9 o'clock, and the cables are not completely connected, and it's on me. Okay, now we can start. What the hell was I supposed to do? I remember in training rooms, I used to draw my EventStorming logo, use my markers, the colors, and all the thing, and then I realized this is actually part of the training. This is a stop of me as a funny idiot going around and talking. Well, maybe not really the stop, but that's the beginning of me as a trainer of this stuff. I'm just cleaning up my brain, and now I'm ready for the training. And this part of
same.
Yeah, ritual descent is actually missing. I need to find new rituals for the training, starting an online class, and I don't know yet what they are.
Right, and I think your key, the idea of having someone like Enrico on as part of some kind of a workshop or a session, remote modeling, whatever it is, having someone function as the producer who's kind of behind the scenes, making sure that it's a good experience for everybody is a really great idea, in terms of, I want, as the trainer or as the facilitator, to be freed up to focus on making this the best possible experience I can for everyone. And if I have to do that at the same time as I'm trying to manage all the technical aspects of it, it's just overwhelming. And I think that's part of the reluctance that I've had over the last few weeks in terms of pivoting to virtual things, is being able to, you know, how do I do this in such a way when I have to do everything? It just feels overwhelming. So if people can have somebody that functions as in that kind of role, at least maybe at the beginning of the session, that could really help.
Yep. No, that that makes a difference. Like I like to do it by myself because I like playing the experiences and seeing the things. But then on a normal training day, I would like to focus on the training and make sure the stack is working. And also is a matter of mood. I mean, sometimes you're just focusing on something. Sometimes you're getting into the coding activities to make some demo, and that you just need somebody to tell you, hey, wake up, everybody else is gone. And I still have to fix this line of code, but yeah. So 2 eyes is better than 1.
Right.
Okay. Shall we, well, thanks for the kind words towards the producers. Shall we go back to some questions? Because we still have some to answer, and maybe that brings us back to the more human factors of the whole conversation. So one is, so when talking about remote sessions, Jean-Marie asks, do you need to identify leaders or identify people relationship during the remote sessions? If so, how do you do in virtual events? Of course, here the comparison is between when you enter a room and sometimes is clear who could be, say, the leader in a group or company, as opposed to the remote one.
Tricky one, like
right. Well, when I run an in-person workshop, part of what I usually do at the beginning is give people a chance to introduce themselves, to write down what their goals are for the workshop, to post those up. So that type of readout helps create a little bit of psychological safety because it puts everyone on the same level playing field. So from a participant's perspective, it already signals that it's okay to write things down and it's okay to express your goals. And then as a facilitator or as a trainer on my side, it helps me get a read of the room and understand a little bit better what the power relationships are in the room in terms of how people respond to what different people say. And it also helps me make sure that we're all aligned on the goals for the session as well. So that would be the same type of thing that I would do in a virtual session, which, as with all of these things, is going to take longer in a virtual setting because you have to wait for the lag as people mute and unmute and that type of thing. But I think giving people the chance to speak and to acknowledge each other and to express what their goals are for a session is still going to be just as applicable in a virtual setting, if not more so.
Yeah. For me, I would say there's a big chasm between people I have met before and people I'm meeting for the first time, or companies I'm seeing for the first time. So I mean, the thing that I'm missing most is the ability to actually visit the customer. So as a consultant, if you visit the customer, you see all the signals of who is in charge, who is not, where the power is, where the respect is. This is so visible, but just walking through the office and having a coffee, you have all the signals. Right. In 5 minutes, you have a clear idea. And then you have a problem online, like this, everybody look like the same. I mean, everybody's in the same size square in your Zoom or Meet screen. And you'll only see the faces. You don't realize if somebody's 2 meters tall or different. That there's so much of the people that you won't remember so easily because you don't have the time to see the full person with all the other details. So I'm finding myself sketchnoting a little bit of a map of the people, trying to put people together and understand maps, power play or something. But I'm realizing I'm a little bit more lost in this situation in some places. And the biggest question mark is about the people that don't talk a lot, and usually these are the people that you can have a conversation at the coffee machine. And now the coffee machine is gone. Coffee machine is private, is not shared, and that's one of the things that is making me feel weird. Like it's not so much of a problem in a training. In a training, you're just delivering. But when it comes to consulting, I'm getting a lot less information about the company, and sometimes I'm just seeing what the organization wants me to see, which is not exactly the best position for a consultant that wants to make an impact or a change, because people are not telling the whole truth, and not unintentional. I mean, completely honestly, but there's part of the signals which are making some choices viable and others non-viable, and we are missing part of this information.
This is true. This is a big challenge I found too. A lot of the coaching that I've done over the last 2-3 years has been remote, and that's typically going to a company on site for a couple of days to run some kind of workshop and then follow up with remote coaching from there. And I'm just trying to think what kinds of things I've done to try and mitigate that. So some of that has been to arrange one-on-one calls with, so this will work in a coaching context, maybe not so much in an actual session where it's just a one-off workshop, but in a coaching engagement, being able to schedule some one-on-one calls with people, just short 15 minutes, 30 minutes, just to get some feedback from them on how they think the session went or what they see the challenges are. And more importantly, just to build a bit of a relationship with that person so that I have some more context into what's going on in the organization. It can also be like a call with a couple of people, a couple of team leads or something like that, to be able to establish trust and have them get to know me as well. I did a lot of coaching sessions with one client where it was everybody in the same room and, you know, on some kind of video call, and then it would just be me and everyone, and I found that tremendously difficult to do, and like I was intruding on the room. And so the way that I tried to mitigate that was set up some calls outside of those meetings, just to say, well, how did you feel that went, and what do we need to improve things here, and you know, what do you see as the issues, and schedule that individually with some people. And that helped tremendously, because then it provided me some context for the actual group coaching that I was doing.
Well, I'm taking a look at the question. We have so many.
Yeah,
I see some from Marco.
Sorry. So we don't lose any.
Take us through, Enrico. Take us through.
Yeah.
Keep us honest here.
Well, no, I don't want to miss this because it's very interesting, actually. And it brings us back to one of the points we discussed yesterday, as with, is it possible that's for Paul, but of course, Alberto, you will tell us what you think as well. I'm wondering, is it possible to adjust training from the back of the room techniques with online training? I
think absolutely. When I did the training from the back, when I read the book, and my friend Richard Lawrence was an already experienced training from the back of the room facilitator, so I co-taught some classes with him, and that was my initial exposure to it, and I saw the value. And then I took the actual class with Sharon Bowman, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 years ago in Sacramento in California, and that completely transformed the way that I thought about training. So I think some of the challenges virtually is training from the back of the room is very much the idea of being the person that comes alongside the people in the workshop, rather than being as Sharon says, not being the sage on the stage, but being the guide on the side, is the way that she describes it, and providing activities for people like breakout groups. Zoom has the ability to do breakout rooms, which I've started to experiment with more, where you can say, okay, randomly assign everyone in the class into groups of 2 or 4, 3, whatever it is, and allow people to work on exercises in smaller groups. I do that kind of thing in person classes all the time, is, okay, turn to the person next to you and discuss this question. And then get people from table groups to do a readout back to the rest of the group. I think all those things are still viable, perfectly viable in a virtual setting. The tooling for it is a little spotty. Zoom has breakout rooms, but some of the other tools that I've used do not. And sometimes when I'm working with clients, they have that ability locked down too, so that we can't do it. Or sometimes they've locked it down so that I don't have control of the meeting in terms of the actual call. So I think there's still a lot of potential to figure out creative solutions to a lot of that kind of thing. So I think it still applies, and I think that giving people the opportunity to break out into smaller groups. One of the things that Sharon talks about is the importance of variety in training. And I think this is a big problem with training in a virtual setting, is it's a mediated experience through a screen, and it can get really boring really fast. I'm sure there are people on the call right now that are already, tuning out, and that's perfectly natural and normal. And so in a virtual training experience, introducing variety and surprise and delight, I think are real, yes, like that, are real challenges, and important because we're wired towards novelty. And so much of the virtual experiences that I've had over the last 3 weeks have been soulless and just more of the same. And it just saps my energy. So I don't want to inflict that on people either. Alberto, you probably have some thoughts on this too.
It was interesting because when this started, like, okay, training is, as we know, it is gone. So what do? Oh, we need to be good in video producing and make videos. And actually no, that's already something for this. I mean, there was Pluralsight and other training classes, but we were good in trying to do the best possible training and learning experience in real life. And the best possible learning experience is full immersion, highly interactive, and with a lot of variety. Just putting your slides on a video, oh, come on, I want to die. I don't want to, it's boring in real life. And if it's boring in real life, it's going to be a lot more boring online. And then no, that would be a torture. A couple of other things, like actually one of the little points is from the delivery experience, it works a lot better if you're standing up. It's just like little stupid things, but we are sitting the whole day because we are in video calls, and in video calls I have the screen in front of me. No, stand-up desk really works a lot better. Take your seat. Sometimes you might want to come and switch, but being standing up when you're delivering, when you're talking, is a completely different body attitude. Right. So yeah, and the second thing was when we had to redesign our content. All of the redesign, all of the good ideas never happened when I was sitting at the laptop. I mean, the laptop is constraining your way of thinking into clicking. In order to have good ideas, I have to go in another room, maybe play with stickies, maybe just have a piece of paper and drawing something with this, like make sketches. But the mindset needed to be disconnected, needed to be not digital. And then I came back with some ideas. So I'm basically trying to split my day into decision and design moments, and this happens offline, and executable moments where I sit at the laptop and then I finally type, draw, deliver what I already decided. Of course, there might be variation, but it's two different mindset. I sit only where I need to sit.
Right. And I think in a virtual setting, you could still do that type of thing, right? You can, I mean, in my classes, I will say something like, okay, everybody stand up, and somebody from each table group lead the rest of the table group in some kind of easy stretch. Get the oxygen back to your brain. And let's just do that for 15 seconds, 30 seconds. And then everyone kind of laughs and has a bit of a good time. And then they sit down and we keep going. And that could happen in a virtual setting too, right? Yeah, okay. The loser is sitting. All right, well, you know, it's kind of a superpower here to have a standing desk, right? But actually one that is adjustable. So I take that comment, and there we go. I just have to unplug a couple of things. All right. So now I'm standing. Not everyone has a standing desk though. So I just wrote down in the scribble board here the 6 trumps that Sharon Bowman talks about in training from the back of the room. And I think a lot of the problems with virtual training is because we don't adhere to these, right? So virtual training typically involves sitting, listening, reading, right? In terms of reading words, and then just reading instead of writing. often a lot of virtual settings are long and boring, and they're the same, right? So I think the real challenge in the types of things that we offer as consultants, as trainers, is to actually pay attention to the items that are on the left and say, okay, so how do we incorporate movement? How do we incorporate talking in various settings? How do we incorporate more images? How do we incorporate people maybe taking a break from the screen and doing some sketching and writing like you did and putting it up to the screen, and making these things fun, right? Like making them shorter and more focused, and then having more elements of difference in these experiences, I think are going to be key. And if we can do those types of things in our virtual experience, whether it's remote modeling or training or whatever it is, it's going to make a better experience for us as instructors, as facilitators, and also for the participants as well.
Yeah.
I'll get off my soapbox now.
There's a little thing that we discovered in one of our experiments. So it was a 4-hour training module, and it was only on a given recipe of EventStorming. So I said, like, okay, I still need an introduction. I promised I was going to take it as short as possible, and it was less than 10 minutes, and I delivered it in less than 10 minutes. And people were relieved. Okay, only 10 minutes, great, awesome. The questions at the end of the 4 hours, 50% of the questions were about things that I actually told at the very beginning. And so what was the point of that? I tried to clarify the two things, and they were gone anyway. I mean, they were available, they were written, and so on, but the attention is not yet there, and the presentation part was not making this alive in this scenario. That was an interesting finding. And one other thing that we are trying to do is to make the content available in more than one media. We are starting to use quick wikis for creating a virtual classroom. So you can see things, but you can also find things around.
Right.
And these are more or less the same thing that we taught, maybe from a different angle. And so the story starts to make sense. If people are doing a little wandering exploration when the classroom is closed, but I mean, when the trainer is not there, but the classroom is still open, that might be an interesting approach. And I mean, there's a lot more that we can do in those tools, but the human brain is still working in the same way. We have limitation of attention, and boredom is still our worst enemy.
Okay, as we get close to the end of the session, I would suggest, if you agree, we read the last 3 questions from Marco and try to give an answer. And in the meantime, if you want to ask any more questions, write them now, and we might find time to answer them right now, or maybe there will be a part 2 or something, but that's like we are calling it a day for today. But if you agree, I would read on the questions from Marco.
Sounds great.
Let's go with the first one. Would you recommend a second facilitator to handle cleaning up the virtual space, highlighting past hotspots, write down things that have been said but not written?
Short answer is yes. I would always recommend a second facilitator. The times that I've co-facilitated sessions or co-taught classes have been, as an instructor, way more enjoyable for me. I mean, I have co-taught with Alberto a couple of times, his masterclass, and I've learned more. Well, I don't know if I've learned more than the attendees, but I came out of the sessions more energized, and I think the variety. So we talked about different trumps same. So if you have co-facilitators, then you're playing right into that, right? Is that one facilitator can be doing something and focusing on what they're saying, and then while the other person can be doing things like cleanup and housekeeping and that, and then you can swap roles, right? Or one facilitator can be telling a funny story and the other one can be focusing on, okay, we need to get moving on to the next thing. So that would be my take on it, is that if you can do that, it's always going to be, you know, if the facilitators work well together, it's always going to be a better experience for the attendees.
Yeah, and actually there signals are different, so you need to look at signals in a different way. And yeah, so I would say totally yes, and this is available. The higher the return on investment on the workshop, the higher the viability for this to happen.
Right. Talking about signals and how to say the human touch and all of that, the second question is, what are your experiences with detached attendees, and how do you recapture their attention in a remote setting?
That's really hard, because I've had that in coaching sessions, especially when everyone is sitting in the same room. Because you're trying to strike a balance between involving people and giving them the opportunity on the one hand, and on the other hand, being respectful that maybe their personality type is more analytical, and so they take time to process what's going on, and may find it stressful to get called upon. So as a facilitator, that can be really tricky to navigate, is giving people the space to do that. I think something like having a back channel like the chat that we have here is a great way to do that, especially if you have a co-host. Is that if you, I have not experimented with this, but in a workshop using something like Slack or some other kind of back channel chat that allows people to put in comments and ask them somewhat offline, I think, or to allow the instructor to directly reach out to someone and say, hey, just want to make sure that this is providing value for you in a nice way, might be a way to solve that. But that is a hard problem, because like I said, you want to be respectful of people and not put them on the spot, but you also want people to be engaged, and balance that with the crazy time that we're in right now, where we're all struggling to be engaged with the things that we're doing because of everything else that's going on.
Another thing on me is, I guess I'm repeating the same concept over and over, but I cannot really say detached. I can see the absence of engagement, but if a person in the room, I might say people might be checking their phone, might be getting out, might even go to the toilet. In an online session, if people is behind a couple of initials, I have no idea if this person is detached or not. So I cannot make any assumption on this. And the larger the number of people, I can only understand what a few people, maybe 10 are doing, but my brain cannot memorize what BT is doing, or TC only talk a couple of times during the workshop. I cannot follow on that. And I need maybe faces, yes, I would remember, but couple of initials or this type of setting, I would say we can improve with that, but we have also to accept that this part would be probably gone. And we need to have some offline conversation, maybe to recover, or have a feedback channel, or yeah, some people might need to help themselves into this new format anyway.
Right. I think the back channel is important. Like I mentioned, I've been running Zoom calls for my church where we have almost 100 people on the same call, and we disabled chat in Zoom completely because it was just so distracting, right? Is that, something very important could be happening, and then a message pops up from someone that is sort of irrelevant to what's going on at the moment. So I'd much prefer using chat that's a back channel rather than something that's actually an interrupter, because I don't want somebody in an in-person class just standing up and holding up some kind of sign at any point in time. That would be kind of rude and distracting, especially if it's irrelevant. And that's sometimes what chat on a Zoom call feels like. So trying to avoid that type of thing and have it be something that's happening more sort of behind the scenes, I think is helpful for this.
Yep.
Okay, we have the last one from Marco, who says, do you prefer breakout rooms or a single virtual group? Does it depend on size?
Yeah, completely.
Yeah, the more people you have on the call, the more it's going to be a hub and spoke kind of approach, where one person's talking and everybody else is passive. The virtual event storming we did 2 weeks ago, I think we had between 5 and 7 people, and everyone was engaged, everyone was participating. But I can imagine that as the numbers increase, the involvement would decrease. So I think that if you're running some kind of session where there's a lecture component to it, then having everyone in the same room is fine, especially if it's on speaker view rather than gallery view, because gallery view can be really distracting. But then use breakout rooms or some other kind of mechanism for splitting people up into groups of 4, 5, 6, or even pairs, to be able to have that kind of more meaningful interaction, to change from hub and spoke to network, right? So, you know, a lot of interaction is, you know, yeah, hub and spoke. So you've just got one person and then everyone else is kind of on the call like this, versus, you know, a situation where you can create a class in a class environment in person. It's much easier to create these kind of connections between people where it's more of a network. And I'm trying to do that in virtual sessions as well, is find ways to enable people to move in and out of these sessions, knowing that anytime you switch tools or switch in and out of rooms, you have to allow several minutes for people to kind of readjust. It just takes time.
Yep. Claudio, as training from the back of the room, I found activities such as wall writing work pretty well. I wonder if you have translated activities when you throw up balls around, stand up.
I would love to try that. I mean, in person classes, I usually distribute pipe cleaners, and I've had people do all sorts of cool things in classes with pipe cleaners. I don't know how to. I mean, in a virtual setting, you don't often have access to people's. It's kind of creepy to ask for their home addresses and send them stuff and that. So there are probably a lot of other fun activities. I've seen some virtual sessions where they do word cloud activities as kind of a check-in exercise, and use some of the liberating structures exercises. Lean coffee formats could work really well. I think there's just so much potential for experimentation and improvement in all of this. And I know for me, I need to get better at sharing what I'm learning and putting it out there for comment, which is scary, but it's important to do.
Yeah, actually, I would like to, I know the Play 14 community has been experimenting a lot on this type of icebreaker games turned into remote session. And we've been experimenting with a couple of little ideas, but the thing is, every little idea experiment needs a little bit more preparation than the right occasion to be going through. So let's say we have a few ideas in the pipeline, some of them already been working, but there is not the toolkit as big as it used to be. I mean, a lot of things are not proven yet, or they're proven, but for a different tribe of people. And what is a good icebreaker for some people might be like, oh, are we really doing that for some others? And so we need to find the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that is it with the questions. Thanks very much. I guess we can wrap it up. Do you want to say something as a closing? We still have a couple of minutes, of course. We are not running just now.
Well, I feel very humbled that, you know, to be able to do this. I certainly know that I'm just trying to learn as quickly as I can in all of this, and try and figure out what the best ways to do this for me and for our attendees and participants. And I love the experiments that like Virtual DDD are doing with the Wardley mapping last week, and what other people are doing with their classes. And so you know, in these crazy times, I want to make sure that we can support each other and help each other through this, and learn from each other, so that we come out the other end of all of this more resilient than when we came in.
Absolutely, that's the whole point for us as well, and we are glad we can collaborate with people like you, Paul. So thanks a lot.
You're welcome.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. Like there are the old needs that are still going to be there. There are the new needs which are different, and then there are all of the transient situation, which is yeah, something hurting people on the personal life, or just simply making things harder. And then there's the major uncertainty about what is going to happen next, because maybe the wave is not over, and yeah, we don't know what is happening. So we might actually need. So I would say, in one way, these. We have a mission. We need to be better in these tools for collaborative decision making online, because now most of the key decisions are taken by people in a virtual conference, and this is boring, is suboptimal, and it's just like looking people in their face is not the best way to make a decision. That's exactly the dysfunctional meeting room turn into the digital world. And to me, this is extremely scary, because some important decisions are taken in a way which is, oh well, possibly wrong, and everybody's facing the consequences. Right. So for small teams, larger organization, or yeah, even government, we probably need to have better ways to make sophisticated decision making available, even if you are not meeting in person.
Right, and I think this is an opportunity we have. I mean, we can view this as an opportunity to be more connected with each other through this, and have a greater sense of community and a greater sense of mutual support and learning. And so I don't know how we do that, but I'm grateful for things like this as an opportunity to connect with the people on YouTube and chats, and also with you guys as well. So thank you.
Thanks, Paul. As we said other times, it's almost as good as if it was in person, but we'll be back, we hope. And okay, so thanks everyone for being here. Thanks, Alberto. Thanks, Paul. Just wanted to share some, well, the usual closing bits. I shared on the YouTube chat the link to a feedback form. We would be very grateful if you could just tell us your opinion. We also just published remote event storming modeling, which is going to be an online course for learning how to facilitate event storming in a remote scenario. Alberto, correct me if I'm wrong.
That's more or less the plan.
Brilliant. That's what I was expecting. So we don't have the dates out yet, but the link is in the chat. If you want to check it out, let us know what you think. We would be grateful for that. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is down here somewhere, so that you don't miss the next videos. That was an excellent meetup, a lot of food for thought, and we hope to see you all soon.
Just take care. Ciao. Stay safe.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye. Have a nice dinner. Well, breakfast.
Bye.
Lunch in my case.
Lunch. Ciao, ciao.
See you.